Record. T minus 3, 2, 1. Action.
Alrighty, hello everybody.
Beautiful.
How'd we sound out there?
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. All right, good to hear. Well, hello everybody. Great to see you all again, and thanks for joining us here on Zoom. Before I get into my lesson today, I do want to turn it over for a quick tips and tricks session with Sean, who can remind you or inform you for the first time, if you're just joining us for your first session today, about some of the stuff that you can do with Zoom. So take it away, Sean.
Just some things most of you already know still, so I'm just going to go over it rather quickly here. So first of all, you're all muted right now, so if you want to say anything, you'll have to what's called raise your hand, and most of you should know how to do this by now, but to do that, you go to the center of your screen if you're on a computer, and there's a button that says Participants. And that's just going to bring up a list of everybody who's on this class. And then on the bottom, it'll say, raise hand. It's easy as that. Just click on it, and then it'll raise your hand, and then we see it on our screens here, and then we can kind of spotlight you and let you ask your question. So if you change your mind, you don't have a question, you can click that same button, and then it says lower hand. So easy enough, right? So that's that. If your video is on or off and you want to change it, maybe you've got it on and you don't want it on, you can stop your video. If it's off and you want it on, you can start your video. And that is on the bottom left of the screen here. And it should say one or the other, either stop or start video, whichever you prefer. And last but not least, there is a chat. Most of you notice sometimes something pops up and it says somebody said something. You can choose to message everybody. I say probably keep that to a minimum so we don't have too many distractions, but if you're having a hard time figuring out any of the Zoom features, or maybe you're seeing something weird on your screen, you can message me privately on there. I've been helping people regularly with that, so you can use that if you figure that out. So that's all I got for today. We'll keep it simple, and that's all we need to know. So go ahead, Brian.
All righty, thank you, Sean. So this is my third week that I've been teaching these Zoom classes. This has just been super fun for me. Most of you guys know that I've been a teacher with Fletcher Music for almost my entire 10 years that I've been with the company. And so after that month off of teaching, I was really happy to be back here, and the time's flying by now. So we did our first session that I did was focused on your music styles, if you remember that back a few weeks ago. And then the one that we did last week was focused on your melody sounds. And I've told you that those are the two things that I consider the most important as a hobby music player. You got to pick a style or decide to play without one, intentionally, hopefully, and pick your melody sounds. So now that we kind of laid that foundation, I thought I would lead in with one of my favorite workshops to do, which I call my top 10 tips. And this is designed to make you sound like a professional, right? Because that's the goal. You obviously want to sound as good as possible. And with some of these tips, I think that you can do that fairly easily. And so what I'm going to do is pop these up in the chat. And Sean, if you have that graphic, maybe you can put it up on the screen too.
Yep, just give me a second here. I actually have to download it for some reason again. Hold on.
All right. So if you see in the chat, I just popped it up in there. Now, I will say that we are not going to get to all 10 of these in one session. Some of you all have come to our various workshops and stuff that, you know, we might take a 45-minute session and then take a little break, or maybe have lunch or whatever, and then we'd come back and do another 45-minute session. Well, this is one of those workshops. So I would be absolutely shocked if we got to all 10. In fact, I'd be surprised if we got to half of them today. But these are things that some of them you can do on any instrument, and some are going to be more instrument specific, but they cover a pretty wide range of things, and hopefully there's something for everybody. I will say a couple things too just before we get into it. One is you probably will want to make some notes at some point, so if you can do that on your device, that's fine, but if it's probably easier to do it on paper if you have that handy. And when we start going through some of these things, I'm sure that depending on your style of playing, or maybe, you know, how far along you are in the hobby, you might think, well, I'm probably not really likely to use that one yet, but this one I really like. And so when you think that there's one or two or three of these tips that you might use, I would highly suggest getting in touch with your local staff, wherever that might be, and set up either a virtual appointment if you're not comfortable going to the store, or set up a one-on-one if you can make it to the store and join somebody you know, in person. So those are my two things I would like to get to up front. And there's Sean's graphic there that I made. So hopefully you can see that on your screen. Now, I'm probably not going to go in order today. I do always encourage people to ask questions during the workshops, so please make use of that raise hand feature. And if you can't find that, start waving your arms around, and hopefully Sean or Robert or I will see you. Okay? But those are the kind of things that I'm going to talk about today. And the song that I opened up with, I don't know if you all saw my concert that I did on Facebook and Zoom a little while back here, but I played that song. It's one of my all-time favorites. It's a Disney song called Part of Your World. It's from The Little Mermaid. And the reason I picked that one is because in a fairly short span of time, I think I did 8 out of the 10 things that I'm going to eventually talk about with you all. And some of them are easier to do than others. And so I thought I'd start off with number 1, which is a glissando. Now, this is one that everybody can do, and that's why I wanted to start with this one, because if you have an instrument that has black and white keys, you can do this one, and it is really fun. And if you don't know what a glissando is, some people call it like a keyboard sweep. It's kind of where you run your finger along the keys, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. So check this out. We'll zoom in a little bit. There we go. So a glissando would be doing something like this. And if you want to get some real flair at the end, this is what the classical musicians do. They go, and they throw their hands up in the air. It's a big dramatic flair. So if you want to add a little bit to your performance, if you got some spectators, you can do that. Okay. The important thing about the glissando, and you may have heard, if you've heard people talk about this before, the important thing is your destination note or your target note. And what I mean by that is you're going to have some note that's in the melody that you're going to go up to, okay? And I'm saying go up to because normally you do a glissando from somewhere down here to somewhere up top. So let's take an example like no business like show business, okay? In the easy play, the first note is a G, and then it goes to a C, right? Like that. So if I wanted to do a glissando, I would go from that first note G, and I'd hit every white key on the way up to the C. All right, you see my flare there at the end. Whew. But the target note is what matters, because if I go past it, you could probably still make it work. However, it's going to sound better if you land on that target note. Now, what you could do, too, if you want to make it a little bit fancier of a glissando, is maybe you start on this G here, and you go up past that C, up an octave to the next one, right? So it makes for a longer glissando. Okay? The other thing you can do, too, is if let's say you don't have a melody note right before the note that you want to start on, okay? Let's say I'm playing Do, Re, Mi. I'm in a Broadway mood today, I guess. I don't know. So instead of no biz like showbiz, where I'm starting off on one melody note and going to another melody note, let's say I just want to do it at the beginning. So really, you can start your glissando anywhere. You can start it way down here at the bottom, or you can start it just a little bit below. And either way, you can start the song off really cool. Like, check this out. This is Do, Re, Mi. Now think about if you were playing at one of your student recitals, if you guys do that at your store, and you start off your performance with a huge glissando like that. I mean, that, to me, is pretty cool, pretty impressive. A couple tips for doing the glissando, actually executing it with your fingers here. I tend to use my middle finger or sometimes my ring finger. Some people like to use their pointer finger. I think that the best way to do it is to just touch the tip of your nail to the key, because our keys are very light. I don't know if anybody's ever played piano. The piano keys are very heavy. Our keys are nice and light no matter what instrument you have. You can do a big full glissando and you don't have to apply very much pressure to the keys, right? If your fingers are bleeding after 2 glissandos, you're doing it wrong, I can tell you, okay? So make sure you're doing it nice and light. Keep your finger on the keys. It's just a small amount of pressure that it takes, okay? And if you're going to go down the keys, you can also do a glissando down like that. I typically would use my thumb for that, so the thumbnail. Like that. Isn't that cool? So I mean, there's a really wide range of applications that you can use this for. It doesn't have to be Broadway music. It can be anything, and it's really up to you where you use it. If you're taking, or if you've taken the Lowry Magic classes, there will be occasionally a kind of a squiggly line that goes up or a squiggly line that goes down. It's kind of an angled line, one way or the other. That indicates that that's a good spot for a glissando. But just like fill or FX, I wouldn't wait for the book to tell you where to use it, right? You want to use it wherever you want. So if you're ever feeling like you want to put in a little flourish like that, that's the glissando. It's also kind of fun to say, right? Glissando. It's a fancy music term that you can throw around. So that one's fairly simple. If anybody has questions, feel free to chime in, but I thought I'd lead off with that one because that's one of my favorites that applies to every instrument, no matter how you want to play. Okay, just remember to keep a light touch, and if it's ladies playing it, make sure you didn't just paint the nails, because this isn't a joke. I have actually seen more than one instrument that has a huge red streak going across the keys, and you think, oh no, someone just got their nails done. Okay, so I think Joni used to say, ladies, make sure there's 2 coats of clear. So I guess whatever that means, that protects the nails. Moving on, I think I'm going to go to, we did have a request, Sean, can you put up that graphic again if you'd like to? And Robert will send this out to everybody too, so at some point today or tomorrow or whatever, you should get this in your email also. Okay. So what I said about the glissando is just a fun, easy way to add a professional flourish. Okay? All right, I don't see any hands raised about that one. That one's a pretty easy one. So I'm actually going to jump to number 8 on my list. So this is another one that can be done by anybody on any instrument, but it does involve some experimentation on your part. Okay? And you don't necessarily have to have like a musical ear, or you don't have to be musically trained or anything. But this is a move that I've learned from the Lowry concert artists, that came around and played at our stores. I would see Dennis Awe do this. I would see Jim Vogelman, Joni, everybody would do this at some point, and it looks really cool, and it's not really that hard. And that's playing along with your introductions or endings. Okay, so I listed 2 examples there. I should have maybe added another line there that says these are not the only 2 that you can do it with. You can play along with any introduction or any ending that you have on your instrument. And again, this is any instrument that you have will have your intro and ending. Some will have 2 different ones or more. Okay. However, I listed these 2 because I think these 2 are really fun ones to do. So for an example of an introduction, I listed soliloquy, and then after that I'll show you the Broadway opener for the ending. Okay. So, oops, put off my pedals here. So if anybody has ever used the rhythm style soliloquy, you'll probably recognize the intro. It's got this beautiful, beautiful flute intro, okay? So let me just play it for you first. Okay, really pretty flute part there. Looks like we have a question from Judith. Can you spotlight her, Sean?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me
We can
now?
hear you. How's it going, Judith?
Oh, it's going great, but I didn't get last week's materials to print here at home. Are they still available?
Yeah, I've still got those, and Robert probably has them too. Can you put your email up for us in the chat, or send a message to Robert or me or Sean?
Yeah, I would send a message to Robert. You don't need to put your email on here for everybody.
How do I send a message to Robert?
In the chat, you can just click on his name there.
Okay.
Well, I would just respond to his email, from
or
just the regular class, because he can get any email that you send to him.
Okay. All right, I see how to do that. So I'll email him and say what happened to my materials.
All right. And yeah, if anybody else, in case you couldn't hear the question, if you ever don't get materials from class or any email that you think that you should have gotten from Robert, make sure that you contact us, because we won't know unless you let us know. So getting back to the soliloquy here. So you heard that beautiful flute part. Now, I won't bother moving the camera too much here, but on the screen, it shows that I have strings on the upper keyboard and flute on the bottom keyboard. And remember, flute was that main instrument in the introduction. And so what you can do is, thankfully, most of the songs that we play from Easy Play Music are going to be in the key of C, meaning it uses mostly white keys. Now, obviously, that's not every song, but many of the songs are. And so if you're playing a song in the key of C and you use soliloquy, this is intro 1, by the way, for people that have 2 intros, or 2 major intros, I should say. You get 2 minors as well. What you can do is come down to the lower keyboard, and with the right hand, you can play basically any white keys in any order for any length of time that you want with the introduction. So let me show you what I mean here. I'm going to just touch intro 1 in a C chord, and then I'm going to play with my right hand up here, okay? And you're going to hear a duet of flutes, right? 2 of them, because there's going to be the one that's built into the style, and then there's going to be what I'm playing. that pretty cool? I had the mic on that time. I realized that might have been a little bit distorted there. Hopefully not too bad. Let me do another one just to show you another example. Now, I think that sounds really cool, and I'm telling you that if you just do some trial and error, especially when it's in the key of C, all you have to do is just play any of those white keys. You can hold the notes for as long as you want, or you can play fast. I did one part where I went like that. It's kind of cool. But I was just making it up, and you can do that too. And it's just, like I said, just a matter of trial and error. It's not probably going to sound perfect the first time. However, it's really fun, and it adds some excitement, because if you're like me and you use some of the same styles with some frequency, it adds some kind of spice to your intro. It's something new, something exciting that you can do to kind of jazz it up a little bit. Okay, so I just encourage you to experiment. If it's in the key of C, meaning your first chord is a C there when you touch your intro, okay, any of the white keys are fair game, and just hold them down for as long as you want, or you can play fast or slow. Doesn't have to be on the bottom keyboard. That's just where I was playing. Looks like we got a question from Karen.
Hi.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, with Fake It, if you had the Fake It button, would that help you from trying to figure out the right combo of notes or not?
It wouldn't help you figure out the right combo of notes to play without Fake It. Does that make sense?
No.
So, like, if you use Fake It, it's always going to sound fine. But this is something you can do with or without Fake It, and by using Fake It, it's not going to help you figure out what notes you'd play without that button.
Okay, but if you're having trouble hearing the notes, you can turn on Fake It, and it will help you sound more appropriate.
Usually, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And then if anybody here happens to have an aria, the aria will actually show you your Fake It notes, which is pretty cool. So that in itself could be kind of a teaching tool. Okay, so let me jump to the other one here, this Broadway ending. And this is the name of the style, so most people have this. Now on the Sterling here, it's on ending 2. Oops, looks like I'm muted. Can you hear me, Sean? Hello?
Hi, sorry.
Can you hear me?
Call with a customer. Yep, we hear you.
Okay, sorry, it said I was muted for a second. So again, just in case you didn't hear me, this is Broadway opener. And again, the name of the style is opener. It's typically under the Broadway button here. And this is on ending 2. So just listen to the ending here. Now everyone's heard that ending probably at some time, that da-da-da-da-dun. You know, they do that, whatever the big ending is, and then da-da-da-da-dun, and sometimes you see people play like that. I've done that at some of my shows. And all you have to do for that one, and again, this is on the Sterling. You might want to double check if it's intro 1 or 2, depending on what instrument you have. When you use the style opener, you're playing your song. When you get to the end and you touch the ending, when the ending kicks on, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you play 5 notes of whatever your last chord was of the song. So let me say that again. I know it's kind of a lot of info. Once you kick in the ending, and again, this is only on Broadway opener. Once you kick in the ending, you count up to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then whatever your last chord was, so if your last chord was a C, you play a C note 5 times. Okay, so let me show you an example here. I'm also going to slow it down. This is a very fast style, so we'll slow it down a bit. I think that's so cool. So again, one more time, and we'll do a different chord this time. Let's say your last chord was a G. Okay, so then you'd play a G note 5 times. So anyway, just little cool things like that that can add some fun and some interest to your arrangements there. And I'm telling you, if you do that at a student concert or something, you'll just blow everybody's socks off. It's just so cool to play along with one of the intros or one of the endings. And the good news is, if you're thinking, there are probably some people thinking, oh my gosh, I'd have to make up my own notes, and I don't know about that. I've never improvised anything. The good news is that there really are no wrong notes. You know, Miles Davis said that one time. There's no wrong notes, just wrong timing. But if you hit a note that really doesn't sound good, just go to the next one over, and it'll probably sound fine. And you can make up some cool stuff, or you can play along with a specific part, like I did on that Broadway one. Anyway, I think that's pretty cool. So I'm going to move on to another one here. Let's see, so far we did Glissando, we did the intro ending. Why don't we do drum variation and alter style? This is a pretty quick one. I'm going to mark down on my sheet which ones we've done, because the next time I teach a class, we're going to pick up where I left off. Okay, so we did that one, we did this one, and we'll do drum variation and alter style. So the last two that I did, they apply to everybody's instrument, no matter what you have. Okay, this one is not going to apply to everybody, so if it doesn't, if you don't know if you have a drum variation or alter style button, this is one of those things I'd highly encourage you to ask your local personal assistants for some help with that. Okay, so when I said each style can be played as many as 4 different ways, here's what I mean. On any instrument that has both the drum variation and alter style buttons, and we'll talk about what those do in just a second, any instrument that has both of those, you can play the instrument 4 different ways. So let's use, we'll use rock, like 50s rock as an example. Okay, so this is called 50s swing rock, or depending on your instrument, might be called 50s guitar rock. If I touch a chord, that's one way that the style comes on. Okay, and it sounds like this. Okay, and that could be for like, rock around the clock or something like that. Okay, so that's one way that you can do it, just the way that the style comes on. If I touch drum variation, it's going to change. So that turns into a second way that I can now play that style.
Hey, Brian, can you pan down a little bit? Hey, Brian, can you pan down a little bit so we can see the keyboard as well?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let me see if I'll move you in a little bit closer here. I tell you, I didn't go through hair and makeup this morning, so forgive me. Okay. So the original way, I just touched the style, right? That's just the way that it comes on. It sounds like this. Okay, now if I touch drum variation, now it's going to change. Okay, now I have a different drummer for this band. Okay, and that's still basically for rock around the clock, right, or something similar. But check this out. This is one of the coolest things. So drum variation only changes your drummer. Okay, keep that in mind. When you touch the drum variation button, it only changes the drummer. Everything else in the style remains the same as what you put it on as. Okay, when I touch alter style, it may or may not change the drums depending on what you've picked, and it will change the rest of the orchestra. Okay, so this same style, this 50s swing rock, I'm going to put it on the original way to start, and as soon as I touch the alter style button, all of a sudden I've got Elvis's band. So check this out. I'm going to play the melody this time too. That's fun. Isn't that cool? So all I did was touch alter style, and I go from a 50s swing rock, like rock around the clock, to Elvis's band. So depending on what the style is, it might change in a pretty big way like that, or it might change in a way that's maybe a little bit more subtle, but just keep in mind that alter style changes your whole band, your whole orchestra, as opposed to drum variation, which only changes the drummer. Okay, so far we're up to 3 ways. We got just the way that the style comes on. You can add drum variation, that's the second way. You can add just alter style, that's another way. Or the fourth way, because I said there are 4 different ways, you add both drum variation and alter style. You can layer both of them together for a 4th way to play one style. So let's go through all these different ways again. Here's regular. Drum variation. Alter style. That's Elvis. Now both together. So it added in all those claps too. So that was another totally different way. That was one style. So can you imagine you apply this to, on a larger instrument, you're going to have hundreds of styles, and you can play each one 4 different ways. So I would encourage you, starting with your favorite styles that you pick, most often, start with those, and just, you don't even have to have a song in mind. Just do what I did. Turn on the style, just regular, then turn it on with drum variation, then turn off drum variation, turn on alter style, and then turn on drum variation again to add both together. And then you can see that there are 4 different ways to play some of your favorite styles. Okay? And you got to know what they sound like. I mean, there's some styles where I don't particularly like the way that the alter style comes on. And knowing what you don't like, in my opinion, is just as important as knowing what you do like, because then when you're playing a student recital or even just at home, okay, well, for style X and Y, I don't really like alter style, but for style A, B, and C, I love it. So when you get to know that, you have a much better command of your instrument, and you know which buttons to push to make the style sound most like what you want it to do. All right, it all comes back to being the conductor of that orchestra. The conductor in a real orchestra knows exactly what he wants the band to do or what she wants the band to do. And that's you. When you're sitting here, no matter what size instrument you have, you're the conductor of that whole thing. And so you want to make sure that well, I'm not just blindly touching this button. What does that say? Alter style? We'll see what that does. You want to know ahead of time what's that going to sound like after I hit it. Okay? Does anybody have any questions up to that point?
Yeah, I do.
Thought I heard somebody.
Al has a question.
Yeah.
Hal,
All right.
what's up?
Hey. So I probably asked you this before in many of the classes that I've taken with you. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have to worry about the alter style, correct?
Yeah, so on an Easy 10 or an Easy 10P, it's not going to have drum variation or alter style.
Right.
However, you do have the style setups.
Right.
And I think you were on my class last week, so if you have the Easy 10, even though you don't have those, your style background will change a little bit when you go through your setups 1 through 5.
Right. I know, I'm learning. I learned, a lot from you before this, but between you and Robert, I've learned a lot, and I'm actually learning a lot more about, the organ that I have.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because there are some people who aren't going to have those buttons. Like, for example, a fanfare, I believe, doesn't have drum variation and alter style. However, just like the Easy 10, as you cycle through your style setups, you will notice some changes in the background. And that's what we're doing with drum variation and alter style. We're just changing the background. All right, that was a good question, Hal. I'm glad you mentioned that because I would have forgotten to bring that up. Let's see. I'll do, this one's just a really simple one. And I put this on here because it's something that sometimes we overlook. And because also, I'm not sure, you know, we got close to 100 people on today. I bet we have some people who are fairly new to the hobby. And I won't make you raise your hands or anything, but I bet we have some people who have not been with Fletcher Music for years and years. Although I know we do have many, and that's great. But I put on here as number 5, change melody sounds. This is another one that can apply to anybody, and it made me think of it just because of Hal's question there, and I was talking about changing your style setups, which is one of the things we discussed last week, okay? And this was just real easy. I just put use multiple melody sounds for each song. And if you're in, let's say you're in Conductor Magic, our very first book that we offer, or if you think back to when you were in that class, you play a lot of the same songs over and over and over, and the songs are, you know, not super long at that point. You know, you're not flipping pages too much and playing long arrangements. And this is something that no matter what instrument you have, you have the capability to change your melody sounds. And nothing can refresh an arrangement like a new sound. So even if you're playing, you know, Ode to Joy, the very first song, you might play it on piano the first time, and then you might play it on strings the second time, or whatever your favorite instrument sounds are. And as you get into some of the larger instruments, like the 10 and the fanfare, the journey, the Inspire, you start to get these setup buttons, and then you don't have to worry as much about, well, I know I got buttons, you know, this is a Sterling here, but somewhere over here on the EZ series and the EY series, I know I can change the sounds somehow, but if you have the numbered buttons in the middle, just start cycling through your buttons, because not only will your melody sound change, you'll also get a different background in many of the cases. And we talked about that some last week, but I didn't want to take it out of the workshop because I thought it's still worth mentioning, even though it's a kind of a quick point for some of our more seasoned players. But if there's any newer folks, just know that when you're playing those songs, and you might think, gosh, do I really have to play Mary Ann again? Make sure you're switching your melody sounds, because that's something that everybody can do. And I'll tell you, play something, you know, we had a lady at our store here in Sun City that I was at, and she would, I forget what she played it on. I think it was Mary Ann with banjo or something like that, country music style and banjo. And yeah, I'd never heard Mary Ann like that before or since, but it gave a new spin on the arrangement, you know. And if you kind of think outside the box a little bit, you know, any song that's in 4/4, you can use pretty much any style except for 3/4. And so you can not only experiment with your melody sounds, but you can experiment with your styles too. And that can be a really fun way to branch out, and it might give you a different take on the song that you didn't even think about before. Okay, so I didn't want to spend too much time on that one, but I did want to mention it just in case we had any newer folks here today. And I think I'll probably finish up with, let's see, we might have time for one or two more. Let's see, how about we go with, this is a big window feature. Okay, but I think this is really cool. Because I didn't do anything that was specific to big windows. So I'm gonna end with this one for today, depending on how much time we have, maybe one more. But I want to talk about start stop. Now, if you're a newer student, or if you don't have a big window or a touchscreen instrument, just bear with us for a little bit. But I would get to know how to do this, even if you don't have this instrument. Okay. Big window, and again, is really anything with a touch screen. So in the E series, that would be something like an Inspire, Rialto, Marquis, Grand Marquis, Aria. Or if you have an SU series, a Royale, a Stardust, many other of the SU series, a Prestige, a Legend, Sterling, Patriot, Symphony, Liberty. Many instruments that have the bigger window that you can do this with. And if you take a look, all you have to do to access this feature, and I put it in the on the sheet there, but if I point the camera down a little bit. All right. Just no matter what size big window you have, just to the right, there's a button right here. It's a clear button that says Feature. And what that does when you touch it is it brings up your feature menu. Okay, so Feature, and then I'm going to scroll because as I wrote on that sheet, it's on Feature page 9. So I'm going to go to page 9, and you essentially have different options of places where you can put these features. And again, this is a great topic if this is going over anybody's head. Make sure you contact your local store, because this one thing could easily be a half an hour little workshop. But I wanted to mention it because I think it's a really cool thing. So we go to Feature, we go to page 9. Now I'm going to put it on my pedals, which is the bottom button here, pedals, natural and black. And if you scroll through, what you're going to see is one of the options that says Start, Stop. There is another one that says Auto Start, Stop. So I want to make sure everybody knows the difference between these, okay? So if you have a big window touchscreen in the middle, one more time, you just go Feature, scroll till you get to page 9. I'm going to put it on pedals, which is on the bottom there. And then we can scroll to Auto Start Stop. Okay, so what this is going to do is any style that I pick now, oh, I will say this too, your pedal mute button or your pedals off button cannot be turned on if you're going to use that feature. Okay, so I'm going to pick, we'll do a ballad, I guess. We'll do Wonderful World. Okay, so if I'm playing Wonderful World, what I can do, and remember this works with any style, when I have my style going, okay, anytime I touch the pedal, I don't know if you can see the pedal, I probably can't angle it quite that far down, but yeah. Any one of your long pedals is going to start or stop the style. So, hands free, right? Get my hands in the pane there. Watch this. You can see my left leg go up and down. Watch this. I'm going to start it with the pedal. All right, pretty cool. And then I can stop it with the pedal. So why would I ever want to do that? Why would you want to stop it and start it with your feet? Check this out. Those cool kind of dramatic pauses you can do in the middle. And that works with any style too. Sometimes it could be something fast. You know, I've seen some of the artists do it with the train, which is pretty cool. I've seen them do it with Broadway stuff, with marches, anything that you think you might want to add a stop in the middle of your song, but you want to be able to keep your hands on the keyboards, right? Because anything we can do that takes our hands off of the keys means you probably have to take a second to get the hand reset on the keys when you come back. So anything you can do with your feet or the foot switches, you know, anything like that, I think is a big help. So the auto start stop, which is what I just did, okay, auto start stop, means that when you touch the pedal, in this case, which is where I put it, when I touch the pedal, it stops. When I touch a chord, it starts again, it being the music style. So let me show you again here. Here's to start. Okay, now when I touch the pedal, it's going to stop, right? And then I can play my melody, right? And then when I want it to come back in, I just touch a chord again. All right, let me show you one more time. So I think that's a pretty neat feature. The difference here with regular start-stop as opposed to auto start-stop, if I switch this to just start-stop, what's going to happen is when I touch that chord, instead of the style coming back in after I've stopped it, just the chord comes back in. Now, personally, this is the one that I like to use. I like to use start-stop. I think a lot of the students prefer auto start-stop. But if you have this big window, I would encourage you to try both of them, because just remember, once you stop the style, you use your foot in this case, okay, and you stop the style from going, okay. If you want the style to come back in when you touch your next chord, go with auto. If you want just the chords but not the style, choose just start-stop. I'll show you the difference here. So hopefully you caught that when I pointed down to my leg, is it when I started the style again. So when you do it that way, you can have a section in your song that still has the easy play chords. Okay, you don't have to play full chords, just regular easy play. And you don't have to play bass pedals either. You play just like you normally would. It'll just be the chords, though, instead of the whole style. But when you want to bring back in the style, you just touch the pedal again. So let me show you one more time on this, and then we'll open it up for some questions. All right. Looks like we got a question from Jan. Hey, Jan.
Hi, Brian.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, excellent.
When you're using the auto start and stop, if you have something, let's say, like Marco or somebody does the programming on the USB, can you still use the auto start and stop for something if you wanted to?
Yes. So that's a good question. So if you are using somebody else's setups, or let's say you're using your own, but you didn't save it in there, what you can do is set it up like that. The feature page 9, when you use anything from the touch bar or the foot switches or the pedals, those fall under what we call the control lock. So if you go to your lock screen and touch control, it will save essentially whatever you've put in any of those spots. So either touch bar, either foot switch, or the pedals natural and black, or all of them, depending on what you've done. And it will override whatever has been in, like, for example, Marco's settings or my settings or yours or whoever's that you've started with.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions on that? Looks like
I see a
Judith
couple
has
people
one.
raising their hands normally here. I'm going to go to Mitch real quick. I see him. Go ahead.
Hey, there's another one of my Sun City students. Hey, Mitch.
Thunderstorm. But in any event, I remember when playing around with the soda stop, with the star stuff, that you could do it in such a way that only the drums were heard. I don't remember how I did it.
I'm having a little trouble hearing Mitch. Did Sean, were you able to make up?
Can you hear me now?
A little better, yeah.
I'll get into the computer once again. I seem to remember playing around with the start stop that you can just control it so that only the drums are heard without having to go over to eliminate any of the other keys. Is that
So
right?
you're saying that if you wanted only drums?
Yeah.
So if you wanted only drums, I would do a smash chord. Because if you do, whether you do start stop or auto start stop, it'll stop the whole style when you do it. When it restarts, if it's auto, it'll be the whole style. If it's just regular start stop, it'll be just the chord. But if you just want the drums, and if anybody doesn't know what a smash chord is or a no chord, it's any 3 notes in a row in your left hand in your chords. So you could do like C, C sharp, and D, or F, F sharp, and G. Some people do a big smash like that. I don't tend to do that because I feel like every time I do it, I get like an E flat 13 sharp 9 or something. But I just target 3 keys, touch those, and that works on any instrument. So, I guess I should say, unless you have like an LC series or before that, then you have to do 4 keys in a row. But anybody else, if you do 3 keys, so I'll show you what I mean. So you heard everything cut out except the drums. Is that what you're talking about, Mitch?
Yeah, got it.
Okay,
Thanks
so
a
yeah,
lot.
they usually call that either a no chord or a smash chord.
Seems I'm retrograding.
You can put that in your controllers too. If you go into that same page 9 and scroll, no chord is one of the options. Excuse me, but it's easy enough to do with just the 3 keys. I think that it's probably easier for everybody to do it that way instead of having to program it.
You could put no chord in the black key, the black pedal.
You can put it in the black pedals, yes.
Yes. Yep.
Let's go to Judy. She's got a question again here. Go ahead, Judy.
All right.
Oh,
Journey. So the only way to stop it is to hit the stop button. So then how do I get back to the full style without having to start the song over?
So if you just hit the stop button and then you touch a chord, it will start up again.
Where I left off or back at the beginning?
Well, are you talking about where in the song that you're
In the
playing, or
song.
where in the style that the
Where in
loop
the
is?
song?
Well, in the
Where in the
song, it's just
song.
wherever you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Each style has a different amount of measures that it's programmed for. Like Robert was talking about the other day, there's a couple that are from kind of back in the day. There are maybe only 4 measures. Some might be 8 or 12 or 16, and some might be 128 or whatever. So wherever it stops in the loop is going to be at a different point, but wherever you start is just wherever you left off.
all right.
Do you have anybody else with any questions?
I don't see any. I'm going to
Any either.
consult Robert here. He should be on any minute.
Okay. Well, we were able to get through half of them today. That's about what I thought we might get to.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you there.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. My, I have to say, as soon as you guys got started, my Zoom screen froze on my computer. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't chat, turn my video, so I was afraid to disconnect and then lose all you guys and lose the recording. So I don't know how the recording's going to look when I send it out, but I just want a couple announcements, and then Brian, you should play a little song before you depart today. First of all, can you go to the screen with everybody and just let's give a big round of applause to Brian. I don't see everybody. I want to see everybody, John.
Well, you have to change that. That's on speaker view. You have to change it to gallery view if you want to.
I can't do that.
I can't either. It doesn't let you.
Oh, you can't either? Okay. Well, then we just know a lot of people are applauding. All right. My Zoom is frozen over there. But anyway, so next week we have a special treat for you. We have Brian Lewis is going to be teaching a little bit, but he's going to be behind the controls because he's going to be joined by Joni Monero next week. And she'll be headed over to the office to teach you guys something. And then Brian will help her out on that side. Sean, that doesn't mean you're off the hook. You still have to join in and do stuff.
Ah, man.
And then in the very near future, we're going to have Joe Fontesha is going to be one of the guest PAs for the week. It's going to be, he's going to do his famous tricks of the trades, and then Brian's going to come back and finish up on some stuff we normally don't do. Another announcement for you. As you've noticed in the emails I've been putting out recently, the product tips, we had a real nice attendance. I did a product tips workshop for the EX Elite owners, and thank you, Carolyn Edmond, for that. She allowed me to do that from her home, so I have an instrument like that. There are other workshops. Keep in mind that a lot of the workshops, some of them you can go to more than one, even though it's catered to a specific product. So if you see one that says A series and it tells you all the models that are with them, it might say something like SU owners are encouraged to attend. The reason for that is because there's a lot of similarities in the operation of those models. So even though we may be on an A model, an A series model teaching, you might still have an opportunity to learn to have some take-home value for that, and vice versa. I put in there for the SU owners that A series owners are encouraged to attend. So, you know, there's enough variety going on that you're going to be able to pick up something from each of those. This Friday, we'll have another, keep your eye out for the emails and the announcements. We're going to have another different type of a live, it might be a Zoom feed again, but we might just do something a little bit different this go around. I can't tell you about it yet because I'm finalizing the details today. And then last but not least, I'm going to always say, support your Fletcher Music Club. There's two ways you can support the Fletcher Music Club activities here, because we want to keep this going. As you can see, our numbers are growing, which is really nice to see that many people involved, really embracing the hobby of music making and recreational music making. But the best way you can support us is go out and spread the word to your friends, call them. So a lot of the emails at the bottom, it says forward to a friend. They have an option to sign up and they can be in the loop on some of the events. And it's a great way for them to get started with conductor magic and beginner's levels. We've got very affordable beginner's models that give them more value in a short time than them purchasing a keyboard trying to learn on their own. So spread the word, because we've got some really great beginner's models. You know, the SC Discovery 3 was built and designed it was programmed by Bill Curry, and it was influenced in the design by the staff members. So it's a great product. And of course, as you know, we always like to market our products. So it's always a good time to take advantage of the opportunities that we have going on out there. Get with your local staff members, because these are still unusual times, and we're going to take advantage of it with our banks. As long as they give us the flexibility, we're going to then pass along that flexibility to our students. So take advantage of that. Last but not least, I want to say thank you for joining us, and I hope you're having a good time learning from the classes. I am going to encourage, I know Brian mentioned earlier about getting with your local stores, what have you. We are limiting the numbers of people in our stores. We're taking extra precautions. So, you know, it's not something we're just going to have 20 people in at once and doing a class every week like we usually do. But we are keeping a very close eye on that. I would encourage you to reach out to your staff members. Anything that you learned today, you have questions on, contact your local PAs and Fletcher Music Centers, and this is how we can just really help you out. So with that said, Mr. Lewis, it's all yours. Finish up with a song.
All righty. Thanks again, everybody. I'm going to end today with a big band tune called Satin Doll. I'm going to use the style called Satin Lady, which is a signature arrangement. I thought this might be fun. We haven't really done anything super interactive with any of my stuff yet. So what I thought we would do, we went over 5 of the 10 things today, right? We went over playing along with your intro or ending. We did glissando. We did drum variation and alter style. We did change melody sounds, and we did start and stop. So I'm going to try to incorporate all 5 of these things. I did not plan this out, but we'll see how we do into this arrangement. And when I do one of them, if you have that chat feature popped up, see if you can guess which one I'm doing and identify in the arrangement which one I've just used. And we'll end with Satin Doll. I think I got all 5. Close to it, anyway.
That was
Oh,
good.
some people responded in the chat, too. Nice.
Glissando, start, stop, played with the intro.
Yeah. And I'll emphasize one more time before we part ways today. I know Robert just said it too, but if you're curious about any of the stuff that we've talked about or any of the other stuff on this list, make sure you get with your local staff. And if you can't get there in person, maybe you can do it on Zoom or at least a phone call. Get in touch and ask questions, because we all love to help and we love to share our knowledge about this kind of musical stuff. So I'll leave you with that today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Brian.
You all have the ability to unmute yourselves. If you want to say goodbye, you can.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Good lesson.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Robert.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good class.
Bye, Robert.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hello.
Dun, 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 dun.
One of the students there. We're all